Hello there, and welcome to this episode of Force Ghost Conversations. This is your host, Anthony King, and this week I'm going to share my hopes for the future of the Galactic Starcruiser. Before we get started, I'm inviting you to join the conversation with us. We can be found on Twitter and Hive at Force Ghost Pod. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok just by searching Force Ghost Conversations. Also, please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your listening site of choice. Plus, Force Ghost Conversations is live on Patreon. And if you're a fan of the podcast and would like to consider pledging your support, there will be a link in the episode description for you to check out the various tiers offered. Finally, please be sure to check out our TeePublic store to buy some Force Ghost Conversations merchandise. And without further ado, it is time to gather around the campfire for some Force Ghost Conversations. Hey everyone, welcome back to another installment of Force Ghost Conversations. And, in last week's episode, which I hope you listened to, we discussed, or I should say rather, Mary and Chaz Purdue came on to share their adventures on the Galactic Starcruiser when they went on a voyage last June. And that was so fun to hear their experiences, their journeys, their individual adventures that they had while traversing that experience. But at the time of this release, the Galactic Starcruiser has officially shut down. It is a tax write-off for the Walt Disney Company, and its last voyage was before the end of their fiscal year, which was October 1st is when the new fiscal year starts for them. So they had to shut it down before then. That's when the final voyages were taking place. So for a lot of us, we weren't able to go on this immersive experience. It's not a hotel. Let's get that out of the way. From what we've both learned at Star Wars Celebrations, what we've learned from the Disney Parks blog, what we've learned from people's own adventures going on the Starcruiser, it's not just a hotel. You aren't there to sleep, let's be honest. You're there to have fun and be immersed in the storytelling of a galaxy far, far away that you get to choose your own adventure, basically. And I'm very disappointed that I won't ever be able to experience it the way that it was originally intended to be. I'm glad for those that were able to do so, but personally, I'm going to feel always a little slighted that I was not able to partake in those adventures, even though I was saving up my pennies and knew full well what I was getting in for. I'm also a little bummed, too, to hear that there was a strategy employed by folks where they bunked with others into the same room, because obviously you're only sleeping there maybe 6 or 7 hours at a time over the course of 2 days, and you can usually room with anybody for 2 nights at that rate, right? And it drastically reduces the amount that you're paying when you're splitting a room between maybe 2 other couples or another couple, right? It certainly makes it less than just the $6,000 immediate price tag on face value. So I wish I'd known that sooner. But I digress. We must carry on with the news that it is closed, and at this point we have no news about what it could be for the future. Obviously, the Halcyon is something that is integral into Star Wars canon right now. Not only has it been featured in various mediums across at least a little bit of television, but certainly in books and comics, High Republic, and other sorts of media, right? Looking at you, the Princess and the Scoundrel. This ship is certainly a part of Star Wars lore now and forever. So honestly, it's not going away, but how does it be reforged anew? And that's what we're going to talk about in this episode. What are my hopes for what it could resemble in the future? Maybe, and this is where my first thought is here, is that it leans into exactly the hotel aspect. Just become what people thought it was originally. They already have the space for, the 200 staterooms or something like that are within the space, that people can just literally stay there as if it was just their hotel room. I think that's the clear and obvious choice there. It's already branded to a certain style and function. But maybe just take out a lot of the fully immersive aspects of it that maybe people didn't want, or just because that it drove up the price tag. So with that, you could easily probably charge a top tier rate because of its IP fully involved nature, right? It's certainly a galaxy far, far away, and you're still going to feel like you're in a galaxy far, far away just by sleeping there. It's kind of be like similar to the Galaxy's Edge experience, right? Where you don't have to know anything about it, but at the end of the day, it's still a bed. This is still a trash can. You're going to feel immersed in it, but it's still something that is practical in our day-to-day world. I think that's the immediate thing that comes from that here. Which, they're going to want to make money off of this thing somehow. They're just not going to tear down a building, as far as I understand. Especially with something that is tied to such an IP like this. They swung for the fences 100%, in my opinion. And maybe they hit a single, maybe they hit a double, in your opinion. Maybe they struck out. But I think this is their second time up to bat now. They've seen the pitcher the first time here. And for continuing the sports analogies, they have a little bit of experience in mind when it comes to moving forward with the next step here. I think there still is a fervor for people to enjoy a hotel-themed experience from the galaxy far, far away. I being one of them. And as a person that's going to be living in the area very soon here, I would still pay a solid fee in order to spend a night or two in that place. It's obviously got a close proximity to Hollywood Studios and Batuu, and perhaps that it's a way that it could have an early entry into Batuu as a part of staying there. I think that is certainly what is most logical to me. Just a little rebrand, little reframing, and then the Halcyon still gets to exist as it is. Similar to what Batuu is, and of course that is something that's absolutely pivotal across media now, and within canon. There's no doubt about that. The question is, though, what is it about the story of the Halcyon? Mary and Chaz talked a lot about their personal experiences and their immersive nature, where they got to choose their own adventure. Chaz did a little bit of everything. So we got to hear about the gambit of the variety of stories that you can do on board, or at least when you could have done that on board. Taking that aside, I think there is a large overall thing that can still be done. You can still probably do lightsaber training, but for a fee. These may be just more like a la carte cost items that you do. So bridge training, perhaps, and it's just a little bit of a ride adventure, right? Where you get to be on the bridge and do a fight sequence. Perhaps that is something that you can pay for. Perhaps to stay or do lightsaber training. Again, that is another easy one that I think is a big win that you can do. The atrium space is also another aspect that I think can also be utilized, but we'll talk about that in a second here. Sabacc, playing Sabacc, learning Sabacc, doing a Sabacc tournament could probably be a daily thing that's on the adventurers thing, and not just the people that can, they're on any type of the property of the world, the Walt Disney World, and then they can go over and play Sabacc, but for, perhaps for a fee, a little entry fee, if you will. Having the cafeteria open and available to anybody, perhaps with a reservation or something like that, and I don't fully know the whole dining experience there, but perhaps that is something that they could utilize as well. I've been saying that I believe that Galaxy's Edge is really missing a dine-in experience. So with that, I think that Galactic Starcruiser could certainly make up for that. I would be a big fan of just going there and having some blue milk and having my experience with a seated dinner or something like that, and hearing Gaia perform. That makes a ton of sense, and there are other places across the property that do this type of thing. Looking at you, Edison's, which has its own kind of dinner show. That's at Disney Springs, of course. These are logical ways by which that this can be done. The other thing that I would say too is, and this is probably my last thought here on this hopeful front, is that there's that whole huge climactic battle between Rey and Kylo Ren on board the ship. Now, perhaps that is a once a night ride experience, or maybe once a weekend or something like that. I'm sure they could figure it out. Maybe over the weekend they do 3 showings or something like that. And then that is how it's a la carte again. This is what I'm saying. In this big center here, this is where they bring in people and they get to watch the show and they get to experience this. So you don't necessarily need to stay in the Starcruiser, but you can pay for the extra experiences that you want to do a part of it, making it more affordable for those that may not have been able to do the full on 2 and a half day, 2 night experience. I think it gives them the opportunity and the bandwidth in order to do a bit more, or perhaps they can try one time and come back a second time, do something else. It leaves open that opportunity for multiple repeat experiences rather than the $6,000 cost up front that was probably some negative PR from folks at the beginning of this whole endeavor. So that's kind of where my hope is, that I don't want this to go anywhere anytime soon. I don't want it to just be knocked down and bulldozed and just be a forgotten history of lore. No, I want the Starcruiser to continue to be a massive part of the galaxy far, far away moving forward. Mary made a great point about the whole legality and taxes of it all, that it can't open in the same way. And I hope, and I don't know the full legalities of using business things for tax write-offs, right? I know like a Batgirl, right, was canceled and it can't be shown to the public at all because of that. So I don't know how this plays into that, and if they need to do more refurbishments in it for it in order to be reopened again. These are legal things outside of my realm of expertise for sure. But this is my hope, are those along those lines. If it exists in some form that I've shared here today, whether they be a la carte experiences, the hotel, a certain entertainment aspect to it, I think this is how it can persevere and thrive in a 2.0 relaunch. Those are my hopes and wishes for this. And I'm very excited for the Starcruiser, for the future of it. I know this has been a sad and somber time for many that are sad to see it go in its current format. But as someone who never got to experience it, I'm not privy to what I don't know. So as I feel empathetic and sympathetic for those that have lost the Starcruiser, I get to look forward to perhaps my first experience with it, and then driving past it and seeing what the space was and what it will be and what it could be. So I hope that this episode really gave you a sense of where this thing can go in the future, and perhaps gave you some more optimism for that as it comes along. And I personally want to thank you all, the listeners, for kind of continuing to support Forest Coast Conversations through the strike. The writers, you may have seen, got such a big, wonderful deal to conclude their strike, and we're going to continue supporting the SAG-AFTRA guidelines about not promoting promotional content on the show until we get guidelines otherwise, such as the strike concluding or updated information on that front. So thank you for your patience and perseverance. I've got some ideas for some upcoming episodes here. So get ready for that as we continue to see where this goes here. I know they've been having some meetings and some positive rumblings have been coming from that, but again, we're still staying the course here until we have guidance otherwise. In addition to that, of course, you may know that we've been in such a transition phase here with closing on our house in Florida, and I'm pleased to report that at the time of recording, or at least the time of releasing this, we are in transit and should be closing on our house very soon in sunny Orlando. So hopefully with our next episode, I'm able to record that live from our new residence, where I'll have my own studio for recording, which is a very exciting thing for me. And I hope that we can expand what Forest Coast Conversations is. I've got many ideas for the future of the show as we enter into the new phase with a new space and all that great stuff around it. So with that, folks, that is all that I had for this week's episode. Of course, be sure to continue to subscribe, rate, and review the show on your podcast sites of choice. Of course, tell your friends about us. We love to continue spreading the show through other means. Word of mouth is great, social media sites, all that great stuff. And again, rating and reviews helps us to go beyond the algorithms that are on Spotify and Apple and all that fun stuff. If you want, you can support the show by following us on social media as well, or just by interacting with us. We're on we are on Spotify, but we're also on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and Hive. All you need to do is just search for Forest Coast Conversations, and we'll be there in some capacity, so you can tell us what you think about what the Halcyon will do in the future. Have you been on it? Perhaps does it just need to be a part of the past? I don't know. These are all fair thoughts and questions, or maybe you know the whole legalities behind this whole thing. Let's have a conversation about that, and we can do that on social media, of course. And if you want to support the show via other means, we, of course, have our Patreon site, where for as little as $1 a month, you can get access to a ton of Forest Coast Conversations goodies. And we also have our TeePublic site, where you can support the show with various types of merchandise, including t-shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, pillows, iPhone cases, all that fun stuff, and it features our logos for the various things that we talk about on this show. So with that, folks, that is all that I had for this week. I thank you again for listening and for kind of going on this journey we've done about parks over the last couple of weeks here. I'm very excited for the future of the show, but also I'm thankful and appreciative of the great work that we've done over the past couple of weeks here. So with that, folks, again, thank you so much again for listening. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode. Until then, may the force be with you.